What happens when a royal guest walks onto a morning show expecting the red carpet treatment, only to discover that the host will not be rolling it out? In just 34 seconds of on-air tension, a routine interview turned into the most shocking meltdown in talk show history. This is the story of the moment Meghan Markle got kicked off Good Morning America after a heated argument with Sam Champion that nobody saw coming. It started like any other Tuesday morning. The studio lights were bright, the cameras were rolling, and Sam Champion sat behind the desk with his signature warm smile. He had prepared his questions, reviewed his notes, and was ready to conduct what should have been a straightforward conversation. The guest was Meghan Markle, scheduled to discuss her recent charitable initiatives and new projects. The segment was supposed to last 8 minutes. It lasted barely 3. When Meghan walked onto the set, there was already an air of something different. She moved, slowly, pausing to look around the studio as if inspecting it. Sam stood up to greet her, extending his hand with genuine warmth. She took it, but her grip was brief, almost dismissive. As they sat down, Sam noticed her posture. She was not leaning in like most guests do. She was leaning back, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. Sam began with a simple question. Something easy. Something friendly. He said, "Thank you so much for being here today. I know our viewers are excited to hear about the work you have been doing. Can you tell us about your latest project?" The question hung in the air for a moment. Meghan looked at him, then at the camera, then back at him. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was cool. "Is that really what you want to ask me, Sam? About my projects? Or do you want to ask me what everyone else asks me? About the drama? About the headlines? About all the things that people love to make up?" Sam blinked. This was not the response he had expected. But he was a professional. He had handled difficult interviews before. He kept his smile and said, "Actually, I was genuinely asking about your charitable work. I know you have been involved with several organizations, and I thought our audience would love to hear about that." Meghan tilted her head. "Right. Of course. Because that is what you do here, is it not? You pretend to care about the work, but really, you are just waiting for me to slip up so you can turn it into a headline." The studio went quiet. The crew exchanged glances. Sam shifted in his seat, maintaining his composure. He said, "I can assure you, that is not what we are doing here. This is a genuine conversation. I have a lot of respect for the work you do, and I want to give you the opportunity to share that with people." Meghan laughed. It was not a warm laugh. It was sharp and cutting. "Respect? You want to talk about respect? Do you know how many interviews I have done where I was promised respect, and then I walk out and see the way they edit it, the way they twist my words?" Sam took a breath. He could feel the tension rising, but he was determined to steer this back to solid ground. "I understand that you have had some difficult experiences with the media, but I am asking you now, in this moment, to trust that we are here to have an honest conversation. Can we start again?" She stared at him. Then she said, "You know what, Sam? I do not think I can. Because I have seen this show. I have seen the way you interview people. And I know that no matter what I say, you are going to make me look a certain way." Sam felt the heat rising in the room. This was spiraling. He needed to pull it back. He said, his voice calm and measured, "Meghan, I appreciate your concern, but I have to be honest with you. You came onto this show knowing what kind of program this is. We invited you here to talk about your work, and that is exactly what I am trying to do. If you do not want to do that, then I am not sure why you agreed to be here." The words landed like a stone. Meghan sat up straighter, her eyes narrowed. "Excuse me? Are you seriously questioning why I am here? Do you know who I am?" Sam did not flinch. He kept his gaze steady. "Yes, I do. You are a guest on this show. And like every guest, You are here because you have something to share with our audience. But if you are not interested in having a real conversation, then maybe we should end this now." The silence that followed was deafening. The camera operators did not know where to point their lenses. The producers in the control room were frozen. Nobody had ever seen anything like this unfold live on air. Meghan stood up. Her chair scraped against the floor. She looked down at Sam and said, "You have no idea what it is like to be me. To be scrutinized every single day. To have people like you sit there and pretend to be fair when you are just like the rest of them." Sam remained seated. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "You are right. I do not know what that is like, but I do know that I have been nothing but respectful to you since you walked in here, and I think our viewers can see that." She pointed at him. "Respectful? You just told me that maybe we should end this. You just dismissed me on live television." Sam shook his head slowly. "No, I gave you an option. You came in here with an attitude, accusing me and this show of things we have not done. I tried to redirect the conversation multiple times. I have been patient, but I will not sit here and be accused of something I am not doing." Meghan let out a breath that sounded like a scoff. "This is unbelievable. I came here as a favor. I have so many other places I could be right now." "And this is how you treat me?" Sam leaned forward slightly, his hands folded on the desk. "Meghan, nobody forced you to be here. You agreed to this interview. Your team reached out to us. We were excited to have you. But if you feel like this is beneath you, or if you think you are doing us a favor by being here, then maybe you are right. Maybe we should end this." Her face flushed. "Wow. Just wow. You are actually kicking me off your show right now." Sam stayed calm. "I am not kicking you off. I am giving you the choice to either sit down and have a genuine conversation or to leave. The decision is yours." She stood there for a moment, her chest rising and falling. Then she said, "You know what? I do not need this. I do not need to be talked to like this by someone like you." Sam raised an eyebrow. "Someone like me?" She waved her hand dismissively. "You know what I mean. Someone who sits in a comfortable chair and judges people without knowing what they have been through." Sam nodded slowly. "I see. Well, for the record, I have not judged you. I asked you a question about your work. You chose to make this into something else. And now you are standing here, on live television, insulting me in this show. So if you want to leave, the door is right there." The E. Studio was silent except for the hum of the cameras. Meghan looked around, as if searching for support from the crew. But everyone was watching, frozen. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. She turned back to Sam. Her voice was low, but it carried. "You are going to regret this." Sam met her eyes without blinking. "I do not think I will. I think I will remember this as the moment I stood up for myself and for this show. We do not owe you anything, Meghan. You came here as a guest, and guests are supposed to be respectful. You have been anything but." Her jaw tightened. For a second, it looked like she might say something else, but instead, she turned on her heel and started walking toward the exit. Her footsteps echoed across the floor. The cameras followed her as she moved, her back straight, her head high. Sam stayed in his seat, watching her go. When she reached the edge of the set, she paused. She looked back over her shoulder. "This is not over," she said. Sam gave a small, tired smile. "Yes, it is." And then she was gone. The door closed behind her with a soft click. The studio remained silent for what felt like an eternity. Then, slowly, Sam turned back to the camera. He took a breath. He looked directly into the lens and said, "Well, that was unexpected. I apologize to our viewers for what just happened. We tried to have a respectful conversation, but sometimes things do not go as planned. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will continue with the rest of our program." The screen cut to commercial, but backstage, the chaos was just beginning. Producers were on their phones. Publicists were scrambling. Social media was already exploding with clips of the confrontation. Within minutes, it was trending worldwide. But let us go back. Let us rewind to the moments that led up to the explosion. Because this was not just about one question or one comment. This was about everything that had been building beneath the surface from the second Meghan walked into that studio. When Meghan first arrived at the studio that morning, she was not alone. She had brought an entourage, 3 assistants, 2 publicists, and a personal photographer. The Good Morning America team was used to working with high-profile guests, but this felt different. There was an energy that was hard to pin down. It was tense, guarded. One of the producers approached her team to go over the segment details. Standard procedure. They wanted to confirm the topics, the talking points, the flow of the conversation. But Meghan's publicist cut them off. "We have our own list of approved questions," she said, handing over a sheet of paper. "These are the only topics Meghan will discuss." The producer glanced at the list. It was short, and very vague. It mentioned charity work, empowerment, and positive change. Nothing specific. Nothing that would make for an interesting interview. The producer tried to explain that Good Morning America liked to have organic conversations, to let things flow naturally. But the publicist was firm. "These are the terms. Take it or leave it." The producer brought this information to Sam. He read the list and frowned. This was not what they had discussed when they booked the interview. But he was a professional. He would make it work. He always did. He decided to start with something broad and friendly, something that would put Meghan at ease. That was the plan. But plans do not always survive first contact. When Meghan sat down across from Sam, she had that look. The look of someone who was ready for a fight. Sam did not understand why. He had not done anything to provoke her. He had not asked a single question yet. But she was already on the defensive, already treating him like an adversary instead of a host trying to give her a platform. So when he asked that first question, that simple, friendly question about her projects, and she responded with hostility, it caught him off guard. But he stayed calm. He tried to de-escalate. He tried to bring the conversation back to neutral ground. And that is when things started to unravel. Every attempt Sam made to steer the interview in a positive direction was met with resistance. Every time he tried to ask about her work, she deflected. She accused. She insinuated. It was as if she had come onto the show with a script in her head, and that script was not about promoting her projects. It was about being a victim. Sam could see it happening. He could see the interview slipping away, but he also knew that he could not let her steamroll him. He could not sit there and allow himself to be accused of things he had not done. So he pushed back. Gently at first, then more firmly. And that is when Meghan made her biggest mistake. She assumed that because of who she was, because of her status, she could say whatever she wanted without consequence. She assumed that Sam would just take it, that he would nod and smile and let her control the narrative. But Sam was not that kind of host. When she stood up and started to make her exit, it was clear she expected him to beg her to stay, to apologize, to backtrack. But he did not. He sat there, calm and composed, and let her make her choice. And when she walked out, she did not realize that she had just handed him the victory. Because in that moment, everyone watching could see exactly what had happened. They could see who had been respectful and who had been combative. They could see who had tried to have a conversation and who had come looking for a confrontation. The cameras had captured everything, every word, every expression, every gesture. Sam had not raised his voice. He had not insulted her. He had not been rude. He had simply refused to be treated poorly on his own show. And that refusal, that quiet dignity, was what made the moment so powerful. After the commercial break, Sam returned to the air. His co-hosts gathered around him, offering support. The rest of the show went on as planned, but everyone knew that what had just happened would be the only thing people talked about for days. The clip spread like wildfire. News outlets picked it up. Social media dissected every second. Some people defended Meghan, saying she had been treated unfairly. But the vast majority of viewers saw it differently. They saw a host trying to do his job, and a guest who had come onto the show with an agenda that had nothing to do with having a real conversation. What made the whole thing even more dramatic was the way it ended. Not with yelling, not with a dramatic confrontation, but with Meghan walking out and Sam calmly returning to his job. It was quiet, it was controlled, and it was devastating. For Sam, the moment was a testament to his experience and professionalism. He had been in broadcasting for years. He had interviewed countless people. He knew how to handle difficult situations. But this was different. This was not just a difficult guest. This was someone who had walked onto his show expecting to be treated like royalty, literally, and had been met with the reality that respect is earned, not demanded. The question that everyone kept asking was simple. Why did Meghan react that way? What had she expected? Did she think that Sam would just let her take over the interview? Did she think that her status would protect her from being challenged? The truth is, we may never know exactly what was going through her mind. But what we do know is this. She walked into that studio with a chip on her shoulder. She treated Sam like an enemy from the very first moment. And when he refused to play along, when he stood his ground and demanded basic respect, she could not handle it. There is a lesson in all of this. A lesson about entitlement, about expecting special treatment, about assuming that your name or your status gives you the right to treat people however you want. Meghan learned that lesson the hard way that morning, and the whole world was watching. Sam, on the other hand, showed everyone what true professionalism looks like. He did not need to shout. He did not need to make a scene. He simply held his ground. He asked reasonable questions. He tried to have a real conversation. And when that was not possible, he gave Meghan the choice to either participate or leave. She chose to leave, and in doing so, she proved every point he had made. The moment will be remembered for a long time, not because of what Meghan said, not because of the drama, but because of what Sam did not do. He did not lose his cool. He did not stoop to her level. He remained calm, composed, and in control. He treated her with respect even when she did not return it. And that is what made him the hero of this story. When you watch the footage, you can see it all unfold. You can see the moment when Meghan realizes that Sam is not going to back down. You can see the frustration on her face. You can see her trying to regain control of the situation, trying to make him the villain. But it does not work, because the cameras do not lie. They show exactly what happened. They show who came in looking for trouble and who tried to keep things civil. There is something almost poetic about the way it all played out. Meghan had spent so much time talking about being misunderstood, about being treated unfairly by the media, and then she walked onto a show, was treated with nothing but respect, and still found a way to create a conflict. She became the very thing she claimed to be a victim of. She became the aggressor. And Sam just did his job. He asked questions. He listened. He tried to guide the conversation. And when that was no longer possible, he did what any good host would do. He protected the integrity of his show. He did not let a guest, no matter who they were, hijack the segment and turn it into something ugly. The 34 seconds that it took for everything to fall apart felt like an eternity for those in the studio. But for viewers at home, it was over in a flash. One moment, there was an interview beginning. The next moment, there was a guest walking off the set. It was jarring. It was shocking. And it was completely avoidable. If Meghan had just answered the question, if she had just engaged in the conversation that she had agreed to have, none of this would have happened. She would have talked about her projects. She would have connected with the audience. She would have left the studio with her reputation intact. Instead, she left in disgrace, having burned a bridge that did not need to be burned. The whole thing was a masterclass in how not to handle a media appearance. It showed what happens when you go into a situation with the wrong attitude. It showed what happens when you assume that the rules do not apply to you. And it showed what happens when you meet someone who will not be bullied or manipulated. Sam Champion walked away from that interview with his head held high. He had nothing to apologize for. He had done everything right. He had been patient. He had been fair. He had given Meghan every opportunity to turn things around. And when she refused, he let her go. That takes courage. That takes integrity. And that is exactly what the moment required. The cameras began rolling. Sam put on his professional smile. He introduced her with all the respect and enthusiasm that he would give to any guest. He highlighted her work, her background, her achievements. He set the stage for what should have been a positive, uplifting conversation. And then he asked that first question, that simple, open-ended, friendly question, and everything fell apart. Looking back at the footage, you can see the exact moment when Sam realizes this is not going to go the way he planned. It is in his eyes, a flicker of confusion, a brief moment where he processes what she just said and tries to figure out how to respond. He does not get defensive. He does not get angry. He simply tries to clarify. He tries to reassure her. He tries to bring her back to the conversation they were supposed to be having. But she does not want to be brought back. She wants conflict, and she is going to get it, one way or another. When Meghan finally stood up, the crew held their breath. Was she really going to walk out? Was this actually happening? And then she started talking, and it became clear that yes, this was happening. She was not just walking out. She was making a scene. She was making sure that everyone knew she was the victim here, that she was the one being wronged. But the cameras told a different story. They told the truth. Sam sat there, watching her perform, because that is what it was, a performance. She wanted him to react. She wanted him to yell, to argue, to give her ammunition, but he would not do it. He sat there calm and collected, and let her show the world exactly who she was. And in doing so, he showed the world exactly who he was. A man who would not be bullied. A man who knew his worth. A man who understood that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to engage with someone who is trying to drag you down. The door closing behind her was symbolic. It was not just the end of an interview. It was the end of any pretense that she had come there in good faith. It was the end of any illusion that she wanted to have a real conversation. She had come there with an agenda, and when that agenda did not work out the way she wanted, she walked away, and Sam let her, because he understood something that she clearly did not. That walking away from someone who is treating you poorly is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength. In the days that followed, people dissected every word, every gesture, every facial expression. They analyzed the body language. They debated who was right and who was wrong. But for most people who watched it, the answer was obvious. Sam had been nothing but professional. He had been respectful, patient, and kind. And Meghan had been combative, defensive, and ultimately disrespectful. Not just to Sam, but to everyone who worked on that show. Everyone who had prepared for her arrival. Everyone who had been excited to hear what she had to say. This moment will be studied in journalism classes. It will be used as an example of how to handle difficult interviews. It will be referenced whenever someone talks about maintaining composure under pressure. Because that is what Sam did. He maintained his composure. He did not let the situation rattle him. He did not let her accusations throw him off balance. He stayed focused on what mattered: the truth, the facts, the reality of what was happening in that moment. For Meghan, this was a miscalculation of epic proportions. She thought she could come onto that show and control the narrative. She thought she could make Sam look bad. She thought she could position herself as the victim of yet another unfair media encounter. But she failed. Because the truth was too clear. The cameras caught everything. And what they caught was not a host attacking a guest. It was a host trying to do his job while a guest attacked him. The conversation, or lack thereof, revealed something important about the nature of modern celebrity. There is a certain type of person who believes that their fame entitles them to special treatment everywhere they go. They believe that rules do not apply to them. That courtesy is something they receive, but do not need to give. That their mere presence is a gift. Meghan walked into that studio with that mentality. She walked in thinking that Sam should be grateful she was there, that he should tread lightly around her, that he should ask only the questions she wanted to answer. And when he did not play that game, when he treated her like any other guest, she could not handle it. The irony is thick. Meghan has spoken publicly about wanting to be treated like a normal person, about not wanting special treatment, about wanting to be judged on her merits and her work. But when she was actually treated like a normal guest, when she was asked normal questions and expected to have a normal conversation, she reacted as if it was an insult. She wanted it both ways. She wanted to be treated like everyone else, except when that meant being held to the same standards as everyone else. Sam, meanwhile, demonstrated what real professionalism looks like. He did not care about her title. He did not care about her status. He cared about having a good conversation that would be interesting and informative for his viewers. That was his job. That was what he was there to do. And when she made that impossible, when she refused to participate in good faith, he did what any professional would do. He ended it. Not with drama, not with theatrics, but with a simple acknowledgement that if she was not willing to have the conversation they had agreed to have, then there was no point in continuing. There is a moment in the exchange that is easy to miss if you are not paying attention. It is right after Meghan says, "Do you know who I am?" Sam pauses. It is a brief pause, maybe a second or two, but in that pause, you can almost see him making a decision. He could apologize. He could backtrack. He could try to smooth things over. Or he could stand his ground. He chose to stand his ground. And that choice changed everything. Because it sent a message. Not just to Meghan, but to everyone watching. The message was simple. Your fame does not intimidate me. Your status does not impress me. And your attempt to use those things to control this conversation will not work. That is the power of this moment. That is why it resonated with so many people. Because everyone has encountered someone like Meghan at some point in their lives. Someone who thinks they are better than everyone else. Someone who expects special treatment. Someone who gets offended when they do not get their way. And most of the time, people give in. They apologize even when they have done nothing wrong. They back down to avoid conflict. They let the entitled person win because it is easier than standing up to them. But Sam did not do that. He showed that you do not have to let those people win. You can stand your ground. You can maintain your dignity. You can refuse to be bullied. The aftermath of the interview was predictable in some ways and surprising in others. Predictably, Meghan's team went into damage control mode. They released statements. They tried to spin the story. They claimed that she had been ambushed, that the questions were inappropriate, that Sam had been hostile. But the video was out there. The entire exchange was recorded. And anyone who watched it could see that those claims were false. Sam had not been hostile. The questions had not been inappropriate. And she certainly had not been ambushed. She had been treated with nothing but respect, and she had responded with accusations and insults. What was surprising was how quickly public opinion turned. Even people who had been sympathetic to Meghan in the past found themselves siding with Sam, because the evidence was right there. The cameras did not lie. The microphones did not lie. What happened was clear, and no amount of spin could change it. This was not a case of he said, she said. This was a case of the video shows exactly what happened. And what happened was that a guest came onto a show looking for a fight and got escorted out when the host refused to give her one. For Sam, the incident became a defining moment in his career. Not because of anything negative, but because of how he handled it. He became a symbol of standing up for yourself in a professional way. He became an example of how to deal with difficult people without losing your cool. He became a reminder that you do not have to sacrifice your dignity to avoid conflict. Sometimes, the right thing to do is to let the person who is causing the problem face the consequences of their behavior, and that is exactly what he did. So what happens when a royal guest walks onto a morning show expecting the red carpet treatment? They learn that respect is a two-way street. They learn that no amount of fame or status exempts you from basic decency. And they learn that when you push someone who knows their worth, they will push back. Not with anger, not with pettiness, but with the kind of quiet strength that speaks louder than any words ever could. That is what happened that morning. That is what the world witnessed. And that is why this moment will never be forgotten.